The lights flickered in Morse code. At first, I thought it was just the wiring. The apartment was old, older than the city permit framed in the landlord's office suggested. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and warmed insulation, and at night the walls ticked as if cooling from a fever. The refrigerator hummed with a tired, uneven rhythm. The overhead light in the living room had always had a nervous tremor to it, a faint pulse like a skipped heartbeat. But that night the flicker had cadence. I was alone. Rain pressed softly against the windows, turning the glass into a dark mirror. Beyond it, the world was reduced to smeared reflections and the occasional passing glow of headlights far below. Inside, the apartment felt suspended, sealed in amber silence except for the hum of appliances and the distant rush of water in the pipes. The first pattern came while I was rinsing a mug. The kitchen light snapped off. On, off, off, on. I froze, water running over my knuckles. Off, on. It wasn't random. It was measured. Short pulses, longer ones. I stood there counting under my breath, the old childhood trick resurfacing from somewhere deep and unvisited. My grandfather had taught me Morse code when I was 10. We'd used a flashlight during camping trips, tapping messages across the dark like conspirators. ... dash, ... SOS. The light blinked again. Short, long, short. The mug slipped from my fingers and cracked against the sink. I stared up at the fixture. The bulb glowed steadily now, as if embarrassed by its outburst. The refrigerator resumed its steady drone. The apartment exhaled. "You're projecting," I whispered. The words sounded thin. I shut off the kitchen light and walked into the living room. The only illumination came from the standing lamp near the couch. Its shade cast a warm circle that left the corners of the room bruised in shadow. The television was off, a black pane reflecting my own silhouette. I sat. The lamp flickered. Once, twice. Short, long, short. I felt my stomach tighten. Stop. The bulb held steady after the last pulse. My heartbeat filled the silence between the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock. I counted the seconds. Nothing. "This is stupid," I muttered. "Bad wiring. Voltage fluctuations." But the building's wiring had never spelled words before. I stood and switched off the lamp manually. Darkness swallowed the room, thick and immediate. Only the streetlight outside offered a diluted glow through the rain-streaked window. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hallway light turned on by itself. Short, long. I didn't want to look. Short, continued, patient and precise. N''T. Don't. The air felt heavier, as if the apartment had sealed every seam. The hum of the refrigerator deepened, vibrating faintly through the floorboards. I became aware of the subtle electrical scent of warm dust in the light fixtures. "Don't what?" I asked before I could stop myself. The light snapped off. The silence that followed was not empty. It was listening. I moved toward the breaker panel in the closet. Each step felt exaggerated, the floorboards creaking like reluctant accomplices. I opened the metal door and stared at the rows of switches. If this was electrical, cutting the power would end it. I flipped the main breaker. Everything died. The refrigerator went quiet. The clock stopped. The faint buzz that I hadn't known was there dissolved into a vacuum of stillness. In the dark, my breathing sounded intrusive. I waited. A second passed. 2. Then, faintly, impossibly, the bedroom lamp turned on. A soft amber glow seeped under the hallway door. My scalp prickled. There should have been no power. I stepped into the hallway, drawn by that thin line of light. The door to my bedroom stood half open. The lamp on my bedside table glowed as if nothing had happened. Short. I felt dizzy. Long. Short. SOS. "Who are you?" I whispered. The lamp went dark. The overhead light in the bedroom ignited instead. Brighter, harsher. Shadows stretched long and skeletal across the walls. My reflection stared back at me from the mirror over the dresser. Pale, eyes too wide. The light flickered again. Short, long, short, short. The pattern shifted, faster now, like breath quickening. I tried to translate, but the rhythm tangled with my thoughts. The pulses seemed to anticipate me, pausing when I hesitated, resuming when I focused. It wasn't just sending. It was waiting. My throat felt dry. "If you need help," I said. "From what?" The lights answered immediately. Long, short, long, long. The sequence unfolded in measured bursts. "I help you." The bulb steadied. "Help you." The room felt smaller. "That doesn't make sense," I said. "I'm fine." Short, long, short. The pulse was sharper this time. The final flicker lingered, stretching into a dash that felt accusatory. I staggered back against the dresser. The word lodged somewhere beneath my ribs. A memory surfaced unbidden. Me standing in this very room weeks ago, staring at my reflection, rehearsing the lie I'd told my sister about why I couldn't visit, about why I couldn't leave the apartment. I had said I was busy, that work was demanding. The truth had been simpler. I hadn't wanted to step outside. The lights dimmed, then flared. Short, short, long, short. A new word took shape, and with it, a memory I'd buried deeper. Stay. The apartment creaked softly, as if settling around me. "Stop," I said. The word echoed too loudly in the bright room. The overhead light blinked once. Short. The bedside lamp answered. Short. The hallway light joined in. Long. They were coordinating. A cold understanding seeped in. It wasn't the bulbs acting alone. It was the house, the wiring, the veins in the walls. The flickers began to move with me. When I stepped toward the door, the lights dimmed. When I retreated, they brightened. I tested it again, a cautious inch forward. The bedroom light snapped off. I stepped back. It returned. The message formed slowly, one room at a time. Short, long, short, short, long. The living room lamp chimed in. The kitchen light followed. The entire apartment pulsed in sequence, a body finding its rhythm. Home. The letters repeated, slower. Home, home. My chest tightened. "You're not alive," I said, though the words sounded fragile. "You're wood and plaster and copper." The refrigerator, still without power, emitted a low vibration. Not a hum, a tremor. The overhead light flickered again. Short, long, short, long. The pattern felt wrong. I translated anyway. Mine. The air seemed to thin. The lights began to pulse in time with my heartbeat. I could feel it, the synchronization. When my pulse quickened, so did the flickers. When I held my breath, the apartment stilled. I tested it. I inhaled sharply. The lights flared. I forced myself to exhale slowly. They dimmed. The realization was worse than any word. It wasn't just sending messages. It was reading me. "I'm leaving," I said, voice shaking. The lights went out. Every single one. Darkness swallowed the room so completely that I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Then, one by one, the bulbs reignited, not in my apartment, but in the building across the street. I saw them through the rain-streaked window. Windows blinking in sequence. Short, long, short, short, long. The message traveled across brick and glass. Across the street. Up 3 floors. It was not confined to my walls. It was the grid. The city. The pulse continued, now in dozens of windows. Home. I stumbled back, heart racing. The lights in my apartment flared again. Blinding. Short, long, short, long. Mine. The final message came slowly, each letter deliberate. Short, short, long, short, short, long. I translated through a haze of dread. Stay. The bulbs steadied, bathing the room in unwavering light. The rain outside softened. The hum returned to the refrigerator, though I had never flipped the breaker back on. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I stood there for a long time, waiting for another flicker. None came. The silence felt rehearsed. I walked to the breaker panel and found the main switch still down. The apartment was powered by something else. When I returned to the bedroom, the lights remained steady, calm, obedient. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I noticed something new. The glow wasn't random anymore. Pulsed faintly, almost imperceptibly, in time with my breathing. And just before I drifted into uneasy sleep, the ceiling light blinked once. Short, a pause, long. I didn't need to translate that one. It wasn't a word. It was a signature. Her dreams started predicting real. At first, they were only fragments. A glass of water tipping from my nightstand. The slow, inevitable arc before it struck the floor. The sound sharp, crystalline, echoing in a room that felt larger than my own. I woke to the early gray of morning and the hum of my ceiling fan slicing the air. The sheets were twisted around my legs, cotton warm and damp against my skin. My bedroom smelled faintly of detergent and old wood. Outside, a delivery truck hissed to a stop, then sighed away. The glass sat exactly where I'd left it, untouched. I lay there staring at it, uneasy but unconvinced. Dreams borrowed from memory all the time. My mind was a thrift store of images. I rolled over. My elbow caught the nightstand. The glass tipped. For a single, suspended second, it hovered in that same impossible angle I had seen hours earlier. Then it fell and shattered against the hardwood. The sound was identical. That was the first time I felt the shift. Not fear, not yet, but a subtle misalignment. As if I had stepped half a second ahead of myself. I cleaned the mess slowly, shards clicking together in the dustpan. I kept replaying the dream, testing its edges. It hadn't felt prophetic. It had felt ordinary. That was what unsettled me. The second dream came 2 nights later. I was standing in my kitchen. The refrigerator door hung open, spilling white light across the tiles. On the middle shelf sat a single lemon, impossibly bright against the dim interior. I remember thinking in the dream, I don't buy lemons. Then the overhead light flickered, and the lemon rolled forward, dropped to the floor, and split cleanly in half without a knife. The inside was dry, not rotten, just empty. I woke to the steady tick of the kitchen clock. My apartment was silent except for the low, steady hum of the refrigerator in the next room. The air felt thick, unmoving. 3:17 a.m. glowed on my phone screen. I told myself not to check. I checked. The kitchen light was off. The tiles cool beneath my bare feet. I opened the refrigerator. There, on the middle shelf, sat a lemon. I stared at it for a long time. I did not touch it. In the morning, I told myself I must have bought it days ago and forgotten. A sale. Passing whim. Memory was unreliable. I knew that. But I couldn't explain why, when I opened the fridge again at noon, the lemon rolled forward. It struck the tile. It split. Dry inside. Exactly as I'd seen it. I began sleeping with the lamp on. The dreams grew clearer after that. Less symbolic. Less surreal. One night I dreamed my neighbor knocked on my door at dawn, asking if I had heard the screaming. In the dream, I told him no. He frowned, as if I had disappointed him. At 6:02 a.m., there was a knock. The early light filtering through my curtains was pale and diluted, dust motes suspended in its beam. My heart thudded against the mattress. I didn't move. The knock came again. I opened the door. My neighbor stood there in sweatpants and a faded university hoodie. His hair was damp, like he'd showered in a hurry. "Did you hear the screaming last night?" he asked. The same words, the same cadence. I stared at him too long. "No," I said, because that was what I had said in the dream. He frowned. Exactly the same. After he left, I locked the door and leaned my forehead against it. The wood felt solid, real. I began to dread sleeping. But exhaustion is patient. It waits until your thoughts soften and your body betrays you. The fourth dream was different. I was in my bedroom, but the proportions were wrong. The walls leaned inward slightly, as if the ceiling were pressing down. My bed was positioned against the opposite wall. I lay in it, watching myself stand near the closet. In the dream, I turned to the version of me in the bed and said, "You're late." Late for what? I didn't know. I woke with a gasp. The room was dark except for the bedside lamp. My closet door stood open. I always kept it closed. The air felt cooler, as if something had passed through it. I sat up slowly. My bed was still against the usual wall, but the indentation in the mattress beside me was fresh, as though someone had just risen from it. I told myself I had rolled, that I'd shifted in my sleep. Still, I began placing small objects deliberately before bed. A coin on the dresser's edge. A book slightly askew. Proofs of reality. In my next dream, I watched the coin fall. I woke to find it on the floor. That was when the fear set in. It wasn't that my dreams were predicting events. It was that the events seemed to wait for the dreams. I started testing it. One night, I dreamed of nothing. I forced myself to picture a blank wall. An empty field. No action. The following day passed without incident. Relief bloomed cautiously in my chest. The next night, curiosity betrayed me. I dreamed of rain inside my apartment. Not a leak. Not a storm through broken windows. Just rain, steady and vertical, falling from the ceiling and soaking the carpet while everything else remained dry. I woke to silence. The early morning air was cool. The sky outside barely bruised with light. My bedroom was still. Then I heard it. Faint, rhythmic tapping. I stepped into the hallway. Water fell from the ceiling in thin, precise lines, landing only on the living room rug. The couch remained dry, the walls untouched. The drops were spaced evenly, as if measured. I reached out. The water felt real, cold. Stopped the moment I thought, this shouldn't be happening. The ceiling dried in seconds. The rug was untouched. No stain, no dampness, but the smell lingered, clean, mineral, like fresh rain. I began to wonder if the apartment was dreaming with me. Small things began to feel rehearsed. The microwave beeped a split second before I pressed the button. My phone vibrated with messages I had already half-composed replies to in my sleep. Strangers in the hallway looked at me as if I'd interrupted something. One evening, I dreamed my sister called and told me not to sleep. In the dream, her voice sounded distorted, like it was traveling through water. I woke to my phone ringing. Her name glowed on the screen. I didn't answer. The ringing stopped. A voicemail notification appeared immediately. I pressed play. There was no message, only the faint sound of breathing. I deleted it. I stayed awake that night. The apartment felt tense, like a held breath. The refrigerator hummed softly. Pipes clicked behind the walls. The world outside faded into that peculiar pre-dawn hush where even traffic seems uncertain. Around 4 a.m., I realized something. Nothing had happened. No misplaced objects. No impossible rain. No knocks. The world was waiting. Waiting for me to sleep. My eyes burned. My thoughts slowed. I must have drifted, just for a second. Because suddenly I was standing in my bedroom again, but not quite awake. The light was wrong. Too soft. The edges of furniture slightly blurred. In front of me stood another version of the room. And in that room I was asleep. The sleeping me stirred. Her lips moved. "Tomorrow," she whispered. I felt myself falling backward into my body. I woke fully with a jolt. Sunlight flooded the room. Bright. Ordinary. My phone lay on the pillow beside me. An alarm I had never set was blaring. Label tomorrow. I turned it off with shaking hands. The date on the screen was wrong. It was one day ahead. I rushed to the window. Outside, the street looked normal. People moved as they always did. A dog barked. A car door slammed. But my neighbor stood on the sidewalk, staring up at my window. When our eyes met, he didn't look surprised. He raised a hand and mouthed something. I knew the words before he formed them. "You're late." My phone buzzed again. A notification from my calendar. Event, wake up. Time, 3:17 a.m. Tomorrow. I looked back at the bed. The sheets were smoothed, untouched, as if no one had slept there. And for the first time, I couldn't remember if I had dreamed the night before, or if this, standing in the morning light, heart pounding, was the part that had already been decided.